everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is a video all about my quarterly reading stats for the first quarter of the year. So what I'm going to do is very briefly mention some monthly specific stats, and then we'll go into my yearly totals to see how I'm doing overall this year. We'll talk about my location map as well because I love showing people that. It's my favourite statistic of all. So for my monthly reading stats, very quickly, in January I read 18 books, which was a great way to start off the year. That added up to 5,925 pages, and I listened to 5 hours on audio. My average rating for the month was 3.5, which was pretty good. I had some really good 4-star reads in there and a couple of duds, but overall pretty good reading month. In February I did my 1 book a day challenge where I tried to read 28 books in 28 days, and I actually ended up reading 34 books, which added up to a total of 7,558 pages. Most of these books were graphic novels, so I wasn't reading like an entire fiction novel per day, but I still managed to read quite a few of those anyway, which was pleasing. I didn't listen to any audiobooks in February, and my average rating for the month was 3.63, so really good. I'm really happy with that. And then March ended up being a bit of a crappy month for me. I had some stuff going on in my personal life and I don't really know where March went, and now that I'm recording this in April, it's definitely a month that I'm just going to forget about because I don't really know what happened in March. I read a total of 11 books in March, so a bit of a drop from the previous 2 months, and in total that added up to 3,344 pages. I didn't listen to any audiobooks, and my average rating was 3.09. So the books that I was reading, the few that I did read, they were rubbish. I only rated a couple of them fairly highly. I think I had like 1 5-star read, a couple of 4s, and the rest were 3 or below. So not a good reading month, and like I said, I just want to forget about March. Moving on, let's talk about my yearly statistics so far, so all 3 months added together. So if you've been doing the maths, then good for you, because I would not have been keeping up with that. I read 63 books in total, and 9 of those were rereads. I read a total of 16,827 pages, and my average rating was 3.57. I bought a whopping 20 books in the first quarter of the year, which I can't say I am particularly pleased with because I am trying to work on a 0 TBR challenge where I reduce my TBR as much as possible, and I'm also trying to read books close to the time that I bring them in so that I don't lose momentum or enthusiasm for them. Unfortunately, of those 20 books, I've only read 20% of them. So I'm doing really badly with my goals there. I'm not too upset because I'm not really taking this seriously, as you might be able to tell. It's just a little nudge for me, really, more than anything. I do want to try to read the books that I've acquired ASAP, and I'm fairly sure I've missed out a few books as well that I haven't included in this stat. So it's all over the place. It doesn't really make much sense. The reason for this, not making sense, but the reason that I have been neglecting my own TBR books is because I've been going to the library a lot this year. Particularly in February when I was reading mainly graphic novels, I was requesting all of those from the library because I don't want to buy dozens of graphic novels, especially Lore Olympus. So I read 3 volumes of that, and they're £20 retail price each, and I'm not spending £60 just on 3 books. So yeah, the library was a lifesaver for that. 46.9 of the books that I've read this year so far have been from the library, so I'm really leaning into that this year, especially because I'm trying to request a lot of my NetGalley books, my backlist from NetGalley, from the library so I can read it in physical format because I'm still struggling with ebooks for some reason this year. However, over a quarter, 26.6% of the reads from this year so far have been from my pre-2023 TBR. So a quarter of the books that I've read I've owned from the start of this year, and I think that's really good because I am trying to read through my backlist and get rid of any duds or get to books that I've been meaning to read for the longest time. So I'm quite pleased with that, to be honest. It's not the worst. I am expecting these stats to be a bit better in the coming months because I have quite a few reading plans and reading vlogs planned, also some challenges that I've set for myself, and I also want to start doing my 0 TBR videos very regularly because people really like those. So I want to update people often, and I think that will keep me motivated. So I am expecting things to improve. It was just not a great start to the year, especially with February, the 28 books in 28 days thing. I don't think that's reasonable for me to do from my own TBR because I don't own too many graphic novels. In terms of formats, as you can see, physical was the top format for me, with 84.1 of the books that I read being physical format. Again, this is the library contributing massively to that. 14.3% of the books that I read were ebooks, and then whatever is left I can't tell from this graph, was audio. It's probably like 2 books. Next, we have the age category statistic. 61.9 of the books that I've read so far this year have been adult books, which makes sense because I'm leaning more towards those. I have read quite a few new adult books though. I think those are the graphic novels that I've been reading, because I've been reading Giant Days, which is set in university, and I would count that as new adult. So that's 12.7%. 20% of the books that I've been reading have been YA, so that's actually quite high. I think that will probably reduce as the year goes on, I imagine. I'm fine with that. I'm not really aiming for anything. And then I've read a couple of middle grade books as well. In terms of where I acquired the books from, just to show you the actual graph, like I said, 47.6 of the books that I've read have been from the library. 27% of the books that I read have been owned pre-2023. 12% have been ones that I bought in 2023, so I'm sort of keeping up, not really. 9.5% have been from NetGalley, and then the others are other or Audible. I really need to get better with my Audible books, I think. The split between traditional and indie is definitely leaning towards traditional. 77.6% of the books that I've read have been traditionally published, which basically means like the big 5 publishers or non-independent publishers and not self-published. I don't actually know if I've got self-published as an option on these stats. I should probably look into that, because I don't really read too many self-published books, but I do have a lot on my wish list, so maybe I could do a few challenges every few months or so where I read a bunch of self-published stuff. I'm gonna have a think about that. In terms of the series breakdown, I am going to do a whole video on my series update for the quarter, but this is how it's looking statistically at the moment. 58.7 of the books that I read have been parts of a series. 34.9 books have been standalones, and the rest are companion novels. This is actually a lot higher, I think, than last year, or this time last year. I was reading mainly standalones, but this year I'm really focusing on reading more series, and a lot of the graphic novels that I've been reading were part of a series as well, so this is making a lot of sense. I am trying really hard to work consistently on my website recaptains, so I do envision myself reading a lot more series books this year than in previous years, because I really want to keep it up and help people out with book summaries and stuff. So that's what's going on there. Here's what my diversity chart looks like. So the majority is a combination of types of diversity. This is what's within the book. So that's 57.6% of the books that I read have some combination of diversity in them. 8.5% have no diversity, or what I wouldn't count as diverse. Most of these are probably non-fiction, or they're books within the same series, I think. Mental health takes up a lot more of the chart than it has in the past, I think, which I think is good. There's also race, and the smaller ones there's class, which I think I would like to focus on a little bit more, but class is often combined with something else. So it's not that I've only read like one book with class representation or different classes represented, it's that it's also often combined with other things such as mental health or race, ethnicity. So yeah, that's really interesting. Combo is always my highest piece of the pie on here. There's nothing I really want to focus on in particular. I just want to get the none down to as small as possible. And then we have my star ratings, which have been actually quite good considering I had a really bad reading month in March. The rest of the time has been fairly good. So let's start from the beginning, I suppose. I had 3 5-star reads, which take up 4.3% of my reading, 1 4.5 star, 28 4 stars, which is excellent, 3.5 stars rather, and 14 3 stars, which I think probably takes up almost 3/4 of my reading. So 3/4 of my reading have been really, really good. And then I had just 5 2.5 stars, 2 2 stars, 1 1.5 stars, and 1 1 star, and then 6 DNFs, because I'm trying to be better with DNFing this year. Overall, not too bad. I think that's a really good average for me. I would like it to be a little bit higher. I would like some more 5-star reads, but that's quite difficult to manage. As for my genres, this is looking a little bit different than it did this time last year, because I'm reading a lot more fantasy than expected. So I've read 21 fantasy books, which is 1/3 of my reading, which I think is excellent because I'm really getting back into fantasy again after a long time of not really picking it up because I was intimidated. So I can't remember exactly where I got to because someone just knocked on the door and kept me there for a good half an hour. But I think I was just saying that 1/3 of my reading has been fantasy, which I'm just getting back into, which is really exciting because I've always said fantasy is my favourite genre, but recently I've been leaning more into thrillers and contemporary. And contemporary is my second highest. That takes up 20.6% of my reading. And I think the next highest is sci-fi, and I imagine that's because of Saga, which I think I was rereading in February. It's more of a sci-fi fantasy, but I only wanted to pick one. But otherwise I'm really pleased with the split here. It does say that I've got some humour reads, but I don't know what those could possibly be. 58.1% of the books that I've read are from authors that I've read from before. This is probably because I have been reading a few series and I've been doing some rereads as well. So obviously if I marathon a series in 2023, only the first book is going to be a new to me author potentially. 25.8% of the books that I've read have been debuts, either from this year or just the author's debut in general. I think going forward in the year, I'm going to split this up, so I'm going to count 2023 debuts versus established author debuts, because I think there's a bit of a distinction there. And then 16.1% of the books that I've read have been from authors who are entirely new to me. For publication years, again, this is awful chart that I cannot get to look right, so we're gonna have to put up with it. The most popular year for books that I've read from, was that even English? I don't know, has been 2022, followed by 2023 because I've been reading a lot of new releases. Next highest is 2017, so I've gone back a little bit, and I think that's probably the Giant Days graphic novels that I've been reading. 2021 and 2018 have also been quite high. The oldest book looks like it was from 2009, which was probably Firelight by Sophie Jordan. And then for publishers, 22% of the books that I've been reading have been from Penguin Random House, which I think is the highest. Yeah, it does look like it. Second highest is Image Comics with 15.9% of the books that I've read. Boombox and Hachette were fairly close. Well, they were identical with 12.7% of the books. HarperCollins is very small, which is unusual because I am also approved for them on EW, and I thought they had a much wider range of books, but that may not be the case anymore. I know that Penguin Random House does own absolutely everything. So it's not a surprise that they're the biggest. I just expected Harper to be a little bit bigger. Macmillan is also fairly high with 9.5%. The other one you might be interested in is Simon & Schuster, which I think I only read one book from so far this year. And then we're getting into my countries map, which I adore. So a goal of mine this year was to do a bit better in South America, Asia and Africa, because I've definitely been neglecting those or not finding as many translated works set in those countries. So for South America, I have recently read books set in Guyana, Bolivia and Chile, which is good going because normally I only read from one country in South America. I think coming up, off the top of my head, I do have a book set in Ecuador. I think I've got one set in Uruguay and maybe Brazil, so I'm expecting those to make an appearance this year. In Asia, I've read books set in Oman, Yemen and Bangladesh. Oman and Yemen were both new to me, so that's exciting. Bangladesh I've read from I think once before. Very exciting. And then Europe, I've read from the UK, Sweden and Spain so far, and also Romania. Romania is a new to me country. I've not read anything set there before, so that was exciting to add it to my overall map. I've also read from the USA, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. And then coming up, just to give you an idea, I've got a book set in Ireland, Pakistan, Italy, Greece, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam is coming up, Russia. So yeah, looking forward to filling those countries in. I definitely need to find more books set in Africa, in the continent of Africa. It's looking very sparse at the moment. I know that I might reread Home Going again. It's one of my favourite books that's set in what is now Ghana. I think I've also got some books set in Ethiopia, South Africa and potentially Namibia, so going around the coasts. And I think I also have a book set in Egypt. So Africa will start to fill in eventually. I just need to be a bit better about finding books that are set there, so that's going to be a good goal of mine. I think what I'm going to do is utilise Reddit, because I think it's the Our Books subreddit, they tend to do monthly reading challenges where they read books from different countries each month. So I can look through there and see what they've done in the past and see what people have recommended, so that'll be really useful. So those are my maps. I'm really pleased with them. Let me know which countries you've been reading from in the past 3 months. I just quickly want to talk about the series stats very quickly. I've started 10 series this year. I've DNF'd 3 and I have finished 4, so I'm making progress. My goal was to finish 13 series this year, and I did say that I would read a specific 13 series. I've been ignoring that and just been doing my own thing because I'm mood reading. Yeah, I think those are all of the sort of interesting stats. If you want to know anything else, let me know in the comments below and I can include them in my next stats video. I tend to do these quarterly because I find them very interesting to see how things go up and down. Oh, and if you wanted to know how much I've saved from the library, out of curiosity, I've saved £269.97p. So that's really exciting because those graphic novels would have destroyed my bank account. So those are all of my reading stats for the last quarter. Let me know how yours were in the comments below. Tell me how many books you've read so far this year, if you're enjoying them, what your average rating is, all of that stuff, because I really do love talking about stats. That's all from me today, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye!